When I was at university some 30 years ago, one of the student support officers there gave a little spiel in the Courier Mail about me, and I didn't know what she was saying, but after I read it, I was sort of like quite astounded and thought, oh my goodness, you know, she's put this out there, and that's something to live up to. But what it was, she had actually said, when I was graduating, she said, Sandra is going to be a researcher for her Noongar people. And I was quite, as I said, I was quite shocked. I thought, what do I know about research? Like, how am I going to work for my people? And so on. But I will say 30 years on, I have done nothing but work for the Noongar people. And all of my research projects has been around Noongar culture and language and history and stories. And I didn't set out to do that. But what I say is, I think the Noongar spirits guided me for the last 35 years. And I truly believe that, because I don't believe in coincidence. And here I am today standing here as a culture consultant for Noongar Maya, to which I never ever dreamed of. And, you know, and for Gordon to say that he believes that this is, you know, a cultural framework and a housing principles is the first of its type in the world, I'm, you know, I still find that unbelievable. But if that's the case, I'm just so proud, so really, really proud. But along the way, you know, I didn't do it on my own. I've had people helping me. Before I get to that, as Gordon sort of highlighted to you all, I was asked to, by an old colleague of mine that I used to work with in housing, and said, look, there's a job going at Noongar Maya, you know, and it suits you to a T. And I said, yeah, come on, you know, this is about the 20th time he's told me that there's a job. So he says, no, come in and, you know, see the general manager, see Tina. And I said, oh, okay. So I needed something to do. I was at home and a little bit, you know, at a bit of a loss what I would do. Not that I was really looking for anything, but anyway, went into Noongar Maya and Kenny kept saying, you know Tina Pickett, you know Tina. I said, no, I don't really know Tina, but I've heard of her. He said, yeah, he says, you and her will really get on really well. And I said, oh, okay, I'm sure we will. So, of course, I went into Noongar Maya, and first time I'd sort of laid eyes on Tina, and we're having a good yarn about, you know, what I'd done in the past, et cetera, et cetera. So after about half an hour, she said, well, you know, you can work part-time, you can work 3 days a week, you can work full-time, whatever. When can you start? And I was a bit sort of taken back, and I thought, well, hang on, I haven't even really got my head around this project. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll give it a whirl. I like sort of challenges. So anyway, started working at Noongar Maya. And so, of course, I was doing sort of like reading the Housing First Principles and other research stuff. And then I thought, gee, after a couple of weeks, I thought, I still don't know what I'm doing. I've got no idea what is expected of me. And anyway, Gordon came in, and so I caught him and I said, now, Gordon, what? Really, what do you want me to do? You know, because I was sort of feeling a bit guilty. I thought, here I am, you know, been here, and I'm really not sure, because I've never really walked into a role where, you know, I've not been sure, you know, and they want to pay me. So anyway, he says, well, you just do what you do. You know it all, Sandra, you know. And I said, no, what? And he said, you know about culture, you know about our mob, you know, you just need to write it down. So really it was having that yarn with Gordon that sort of got me thinking in a different sort of direction. And then I started drawing on my knowledge and all the work I'd done over the years, you know, around culture and what is it that we do, you know, what are our values, what are our principles? So I started drawing on all of those and started developing up a bit of a framework. And of course, I realised that just looking at Noongar Housing First Principles was one thing, because I was trying to compare it to the Australia Housing First Principles, and of course, you know, they just sort of didn't match. And then I realised after talking with a fantastic colleague, and she has been mentioned, Leah Watkins, and you know, it's been Leah's guidance and encouragement. You know, she's just an amazing person to work with, and she's a really good listener, and you know, really gets you motivated. So I really want to acknowledge Leah, because it was after, you know, having a few meetings with her and that I started to understand where I needed to go with the project. And of course, it would be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge John Berger, not John Berger, John Berger. I said to him, as in hamburger? He said, yes, so John. And of course, you know, having all these meetings with John as well, and, you know, his encouragement in the project. So, you know, all the staff, doing workshops with staff, doing, you know, case studies and so on, is sort of really led to the Noongar, you know, Housing First Principles. But of course, you know, it worked out good, because we've got 6 principles. And I said, oh, that's really good, Leah, because we got 6 Noongar seasons. So that sounds like a good number. And I thought, well, it makes it sort of less complex, you know, so we'll keep it small but powerful. So we've got 6 Noongar Housing First Principles. But then, of course, I realised, and then I started to get confident, and I thought, I started to think ahead in terms of the project, and I thought, well, so I started to ask myself the question, if I'm a housing provider or a support worker, and I look at this, you know, what am I going to make of it? And so then I took a step back and said, okay, we need a Noongar cultural framework to help us to understand the Noongar Housing First Principles. And so you'll see in the handouts there, we've got the Noongar Cultural Framework, which talks about, you know, our budja, our mort, our kadijin, our land, our people, our families. You know, we talk about the principles, you know, our values, you know, so our court, our heart, our weirn, our spirit, our, you know, kop da, we talk about kundan and kanya, all of those things that, as Gordon kept saying, well, you know, we grew up with all this. It's in our DNA. We know all this. We just got to articulate it. And so, of course, you know, that's what we did. And as I said, I didn't do it on my own. I did it with amazing people who really gave me the confidence and said, yeah, just keep going, keep going. So, you know, what I really believe is that, you know, the Noongar Housing First Principles and the cultural framework will help us be the change agents in the housing space. And, you know, because our mob have lived on reserves, you know, our mob have been excluded from housing. You know, our culture has been excluded from mainstream services. You know, we've had to sort of, you know, as some people say, you know, suck it up. And I think it's time that we say, yeah, well, we've sucked up enough, you know, we need to now, you know, be the leaders. We need to be the change agents in our space. And I mean, you know, what's the great Australian dream? You know, is to buy a house, is to have a house, you know, and our mob have been excluded from buying houses. You know, we've had to rely on the government, you know, for welfare housing and live by the policies, you know, of you know, no overcrowding, you know, no antisocial behaviour and so on. And I think that, you know, bringing a cultural perspective into the housing space is going to change that. And I certainly hope that, you know, we're going to make a difference in the lives of those who are in the housing space, those who are responsible for addressing homelessness. And I think that, you know, as I said, we're going to be the change agents. We're going to take the lead now, because we need to put our culture, we need to put our values and principles front and centre now. And that's why also we're offering anyone who wants to have training, you know, who want to do workshops in your organisations, you know, we'll come and we'll do the training. So there's a little bit of work going forward. You know, we'll do a service delivery model, but certainly we want to get out there and we want to start promoting the Noongar Housing First Principles. We want to start sharing our culture and our knowledge with everyone so that you can all put into practice what it is that you do best. I think that that might be my time. Is that right? MC? Keep talking. Look, I know that we've got our elders who are going to share some stories, but so I need to leave time for them. I've looked at a couple of case studies in a sense. We haven't recorded them or put them out there, but it was interesting. I did an internal workshop with some staff and sort of did some cold case, I suppose that's the word, because they didn't really know what I was doing. But anyway, we sat down and we were talking about, you know, I said, how do you do your work, you know? Tell me a story, how you've engaged. And the most incredible yarn or case study came out of one of our Maya caseworkers, and he told the most amazing story. And, you know, every 5 seconds I was saying, yes, write that down. Yes, write that down, because everything that he actually alluded to captured our Noongar values and principles, and he worked within that framework. You know, no one wrote it out on a piece of paper for him and said, you know, when you go out to work, you know, make sure you have kop da, you know, make sure you have Coorlungar, because that's how we as Noongar people, as Aboriginal people, we operate. And so he was operating, and he operates within this cultural framework. And as I said, no one wrote that down for him, and it was just amazing. And it made my heart really happy, because I thought, you know what, we've done all this work and now we have our caseworkers sharing these case studies with us, and it's just amazing. So I want to thank Michael for sharing that, because that really gave me like really a lot of confidence, and even standing up here knowing that our cultural framework and our Noongar housing principles are already in practice, and it's been proven. And the upshot was the person was homeless for 8 years. He wanted to run away, but he said something made him stop and turn back and listen to what Michael had to say. And he said, oh, we thought you were fellas that was just coming to move us on. I said, no, we want to have a yarn with you, you know, want to help you, you know, move on. We want to help, do whatever we can to help you. And after one of the first things what Michael did was he got all this information of this Noongar man. You know, one of the things was he didn't have any ID. He didn't have a birth certificate. He'd been homeless for 8 years. So Michael said, one step at a time. And he said, well, first thing is we need to get some ID. So he went in and he said about getting his ID. And he said, the bloke said, oh, no, don't worry about it. You know, I won't be able to get it. And he said, no, we'll get it. So it took some attempts, and he got his ID. And don't know what, his ID and maybe a birth certificate, I'm not sure. But apparently when Michael got it for him, he held the paper up to everyone, and it must have been his mob out on the streets where they were camping out at Mirrabooka, and he said, I'm not a nobody anymore. I am a someone. You know, and that really made my hair stand up. I thought, my God, you know, he must have been sort of living without an identity, but he got this piece of paper and he said, I'm now someone. And then the next step was to get him into some accommodation, and Michael got him a house, and he said, and he took him there and he said, he wouldn't go in the door. He said he was looking through the door, and he said, nah, I don't believe it, and walked away. Michael said, no, this is your place. And I think it took him a couple of times to go back to the door to really believe that that was going to be where he could make his home. And he said, no one's ever helped me before. He says, I've been on the street for 8 years. And so here, we have a caseworker where Noongar Maya have decided to go out and work with the homeless. And within a couple of months, we've been housing homeless people. So I sort of like say, well, how is that? How is it? Is it because we're working from a cultural, from the cultural values, the Noongar values framework? And so we're connecting and we're building trust and relationships. And so I think when we come from that position, you're going to have a better chance of helping people who really need to be helped. Because from what I understand, there was a few deaths last year from homelessness. Some of our Noongar mob, died on the streets. And here we are, in a country, we say it's a lucky country. And that's why, we as Noongar people really, really need to push our cultural values, our principles, and say, yeah, we're going to stand front and centre in driving the housing space, the homeless space. So if you want to come with us, look us up on the website, ask us, come and join us, because we believe in doinch, Coorlungar. We believe in going along together. So thank you, Britta One.